Wow. Now that's the entrance I wanted. They asked me, do you want an entrance? Yes. Before we start, why do I take this? I need the clicker. See? I'm nervous, I guess. I want to test you guys a little bit, okay? I'm going to play a game with you. You need to keep this up in the air with the whole audience as long as possible within a minute. Okay? You guys up for the challenge? I'm going to just throw it in, and you need somebody to just run here because we have this corridor here with a cameraman. So it's going to be exciting, okay? I'm going here. There you go. Go, go, go. Start counting. How many times? Start counting. Okay, thanks. That's very good. I had 4? So my talk is about play, right? And my question is, why is it that we think of work as the opposite of play, or play as the opposite of work? And why is it that we don't bring play into our workplace, and we rather think it's an immature and rather, not effective way of doing? Why is it we tend to break everybody down and stop everybody from playing in the workplace? These are the questions that actually came across me on the last couple of years of my journey. And I want to talk about that because I think it's important, and I think I can share some thoughts on it. So what is play? We tend to think actually that play is something that little animals and little children use to become good at their thing when they grow up, right? So playing is a way to learn how to hunt or how to socially interact and all these kinds of things. Well, actually, that's not true. Research has been done on this, and it's been over and over and over proven that this is not true. Cats who don't play are actually very good hunters. Children who wouldn't play can still be very social. So there's something else here. There's something else at play here, you could say. Okay, so actually the only research that shows some consistent results show that play is actually something that is inside us for a reason, and we don't grasp it yet, but we know it's important for everybody in this audience, home, children, adults, to play. It is important for you to play to be a better person. We just don't know how. Now, this is my son. He's acting as a role model for me actually right now. What do you see here? I see somebody who's pretty serious. I see somebody who's pretty focused on what he's doing. I see somebody who's committed to getting something done. And I'm seeing somebody who is using all his creativity to make sure he's going to wreck the place in a way that he can get away with. Right? That's how it works. And yet we say we don't want to play in the workplace. This is strange behavior. Now this talk starts and ends with pine cones, which is a rather silly, twist. But actually this brings me back to my childhood. And I don't know if any of you ever build like a tree house or an underground shed or something like that. And I got back to that somehow because we used to make these tree houses and everything, and we built one. And actually, come to think of it, it's a lot of work. Digging a hole like 2 meters deep. You ever do that for your yard or something? You're like, oh, I'm not going to do that myself. As a kid, I have dug holes bigger than that because we needed a shed to stay in. And we had this really cool place, and we had like benches and everything, and we put hours and hours and hours in this. And it never felt like work. We were playing. So this is interesting. And now something weird happened. Some of the older kids, we used to sit in that shed and say, okay, let's have a soda, and somebody brought some Cokes and somebody brought some chips and whatever. Everybody would bring something. And then one of the older kids said, that's not fair. So you have to start paying if you don't come into the shed without anything. So then you had to pay with pine cones, actually. So now the whole behavior and everything stopped working like it did. Somehow the plague just left. And we started, collecting pine cones. That was my main existence now. This is the kind of corporate behavior you could see in our forest. We just gather and spread and shred. I have like 1,000 cones now. I don't have to bring Coke anymore, which really doesn't make sense because my mom was paying for it, right? But still, I felt great that I could have the free Coke. Silly behavior that actually pay does to us. This pine cone story has actually haunted me for the rest of my career. I am doing workshops and I consult firms in transforming to Agile. We use Scrum and all that kind of stuff to make people work more effectively and more fun and all that kind of stuff. Okay? So I was at a workshop just not too long ago when somebody asked me afterwards. It was a great workshop and I was asked to stand in for somebody else, and he was actually there. And he said, I have this question for you. You did this workshop and it worked. Everybody was like in energy and it was working. It was really cool. Why? Why does it work if you do it and it doesn't if I do? And I was like, well, I don't know. And that actually kind of hurt a little bit because I started to feel that there's something more in what I do than just the typical thing that you start with why, Simon Sinek, give purpose, give a dream, and then people start to move. This is the typical thing that you do as a consultant, right? You say, okay, why do you want it? And if you have that dream, you can chase it and you can go and you have a workshop. And I felt that this was my thing. I could be like the Steve Jobs of workshops, or the Martin Luther King of the workshops, No dream can be big enough. And somehow this started to, really, I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And it actually felt like I had to connect things that didn't connect. Because I kind of felt I'm doing something that could maybe be very invaluable or not valuable. I'm doing things that are really playful. And it's kind of, in your face when you realize that the things that you do, the things that you bring to a company are actually things that we perceive as not valuable. I'm like the clown of the workshop. That doesn't sound good. So I kind of felt horrible. It really hurt. And it still does a little bit. But now, actually, I have to say, I look at the results of what I do. And I have had a team for a couple of months now, almost a year. And we just said one thing. Anything we do, we will do as if we're playing. So instead of making process descriptions, we'd make cartoons. And actually the cartoons have led to become the number one standard, everybody loves it, process descriptions in the whole company. And this is a big product company. And I'm doing planning poker. I don't know if anybody of you heard it, but this is the way of doing planning in a way where you actually say, I'm putting my card on the table. And people say, I've never experienced planning to be fun. This is amazing. We've spent 1.5 hours, we planned the whole project, and it didn't feel like work whatsoever. This is amazing. So there's some value in there. And then I started to believe, like, this is really something that I hit here. And I started to connect the dots and go back to the pine cones. And that actually makes me want to have you experienced the same thing? So the ball was nice, and you could see your own behavior. It's a stupid game. Keep a ball high in an audience, in a TED Talk. If you put that on the internet, nobody's going to enlist. Right? But what was happening there? What could I see? What did I see? I saw people, everybody was focused and committed to getting this ball up and keep it going. Why? You probably cannot answer that question yourself. I see all these bewildered and bewildered views like, okay, everybody was like in it. I actually was saying, guys all keep counting. I bet you half of you didn't hear me. Like, well, yeah, we're just watching the ball, right? Shh. So this is what it can do. And I have seen teams doing very committed and very focused work being ultimately creative. Creative in a way that you would never see ever in your company. You know, by just doing this playful work. I have workshops with balloons and all that kind of stuff to make people like feel. I have games where you have two teams trying to write down the requirements in a tweet. And then get it to the other side, and then they have a lag behind, and then they're winning. And they're loving it. Why is that? Because we have to play. Actually, research shows that if you don't play an hour a day, you will become less happy. You will actually live less long, potentially. So there's something that we can do with this. Now, you should get your hands on a pine cone, right? That would be a good way. Now, what if I told you that you could actually get one because I hid them under the chairs? Don't you want to look? Yeah, there's somebody. So start looking for them. There's under a certain number of chairs, there's actually a pine cone. And just put up your hand if you got one. Okay, sit down and say, yeah, I've got one. So who's there? There should be one on every row on both sections. So I should have like, what is it, 9, 18 or something, pine cones. You got one? Okay, now these are not just your normal plain vanilla standard run-of-the-mill pine cones, right? Actually, I sent my, see? They're totally focused and committed and not listening to me anymore. See? I'm proving myself here again. My boy has been looking in the forest for pine cones for you guys for an hour. But it was in a leaf tree forest. So he hasn't been able to do it. And then actually my granddad went out to a shop and got 30. And then told him that he got them, so he's not really thrilled. And I helped Dad, get the pine cones. So these are magic pine cones, okay? They can actually make you have the cone. These are the cones of play, and they will get you your playfulness. So what I want you to do is get a team of 7 or 10, depending on how many people are around you, and pass them on as fast as you can in the team, right? To make sure that everybody gets a little bit of the magic, but beware, as you pass them, it gets hotter, right? The pine cone gets hotter. So, make it even faster. Make the speed go. Make everybody experience the cone of play. Go. I need speed. Faster. It's getting hot now. Okay, you guys, you got a couple of more seconds. Go, go, go. Is anybody who hit it 5 times? Oh, you lost it. Oh no. Can somebody help them? So it's getting hot now. It's really infuriating pain if you hit it, so you have to pass it on like really fast. You get more play. Oh, you burnt your fingers. Okay. Now, let's see if I can get the attention back a little bit for the closure. Probably not. So that's kind of weird, isn't it? I even make you, tell you to make believe something that isn't, because of course these are not turning hot if you pass them on. But you could make the believe, and people actually move in that direction, right? Make the motions like, oh, quickly, like that, right? You could do that. You could actually feel that play actually coming. So if you have this in your workplace, it's not only about having fun and being playful and being happy, which is nice for a corporate, but it also will bring unprecedented success and results to your teams. That's the thing that I saw happening, and I'm like, well, this is crazy. How can you ever estimate a 3.1 million euro project in a day? Having some high-level requirements and get an estimation of that in a day. Now, normal things typically won't work if you want to do this, if you want to do this radical stuff. Play does that. Now, this brings it to the final thing, actually. If you want this, it's kind of getting freaky, right? You see the triangle, it's about fun and purpose and urgency. So how do you balance it? And I actually goofed up myself there. You know, if you stay too long in the play mode, actually people start feeling like, well, this is not effective, we're not doing anything. Actually, that's why I turned to get the wall of done with all the stickies that we did, because I wanted to prove that we did a lot of stuff. And then they said, whoa, we didn't feel like working. Did we do all that? Really? So that was, again, you know, something that says, hey, this is really cool. Now, for management and for corporates, this is kind of now getting to a paradox, if you could say. An organization has a purpose. You want to improve the lives of people, or you know, or have some dream of the organization. Play by itself is inherently unpurposeful. The definition of play says it shouldn't have any purpose. So the real question is, for you to typically get this going, is to define the playground in a way that whatever people do in their purposeless way of playing around, they will actually create some results. And urgency and purpose can do that. So if you put your purpose like a real strong why belief, this is what we believe we can do as a corporate. We're big, we can make a difference, we can do something smart, we can do something special. And now you can actually let people go and say, okay, this is your playground. Now you do something and make it playful, and that will bring it home. You see, the opposite of play is not work. As Stuart Brown put it, the opposite of play is depression. Thank you.